Full disclosure time. I'm kind of ignorant about artificial intelligence or AI, but I know it's out there. I know the machines are learning, and I'm pretty confident that we can leverage AI in construction to have a tremendous positive impact. And that's why I'm very excited to have Mehdi Nourbakhsh as a guest on Construction Genius. He is an expert in the field of AI, and he is the author of Augment, How Architecture, Engineering, and Construction Leaders Leverage Data and Artificial Intelligence to Build a Sustainable Future. Mehdi defines AI for us on the show, gives us some use cases for it in construction, and paints a clear picture of how construction companies can leverage it to solve tough challenges, to get the most out of their employees and multiply the impact of their best employees across their organization, as well as bottling their secret sauce and using that bottle, so to speak, to increase the effectiveness of their organizations. So like I always say, enjoy my conversation with Mehdi. Feel free to share it with other people who you think will benefit from the discussion. And of course, check out all the links in the show notes to the resources that are provided from Medi. Thanks very much for your time and enjoy this episode. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Mehdi, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. You know, you and I, we share something in common. For me, it may be a little less apparent than for you, but you and I are both first-generation immigrants to the United States. I'm originally from England. You're from Iran. Tell us about your journey to the United States.
That's a fantastic question. So I started my career as a structural engineering and in a structural engineering. And as a structural engineer, I started designing buildings and writing codes to design buildings. And at some point, I started going into construction and work as a construction manager. And that was the first time that I saw firsthand some of the challenges that exist in construction, in cost overruns, managing the schedules, lack of laborers. And I felt in love with working with people, and I started to get a formal education in construction management. I had a hunch that technology can help us to overcome some of those challenges. And that's why I did a master's in construction management in Malaysia, actually. This is where I learned more about construction management in another country and another part of the world. And I did a lot of research and development for Malaysian construction industry, developing constructability standards for the country, and being part of a really amazing research team there. And then from there, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, doing my PhD in building construction and doing a project in design computing, learning more about architecture and design and how we can bring all of those constructability and requirements from downstream to upstream. And this is at Georgia Tech. This was a time that I got introduced to artificial intelligence and learn more about how it can solve really some of our problems in design and construction and bridge the gap between these two different worlds.
We're going to dive really deeply into artificial intelligence later on in our discussion, but I just want to begin by asking you, so you started your construction career in Iran, you went to Malaysia, and then you went to the United States. As you think about those, obviously three completely different countries, completely different backgrounds, what differences and similarities did you see in the way that construction gets done in those three countries? Can you give us a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there are lots of similarities for sure. The the challenges that we are facing, I will say, is very similar across the world. Lack of laborers. I remember the days that we had to train farmers to work in construction, and I remember the days when I used to lose my workers to farmers because they went to farming, and it was a more safer environment for them to work on and make more money, perhaps. And these are challenges that exist across the globe in construction, same as Malaysia and same as US, but there are different flavors to it in different parts of the world. Cost overruns, delays, you name it. In big projects, these are bigger numbers. In a smaller projects, there are smaller numbers, but basically they're the same.
Okay, so it's interesting. So as you got to the United States, you did a lot of, as you were getting your PhD, it sounds like you'd already had time in the field with hands-on experience. Am I hearing that right, as a project engineer?
Yes.
So that must have been very useful in terms of being able to tie in the theoretical with the practical.
Absolutely. And I use that into my PhD. And for that, I work with Perkins and Will. And one of the challenges that they had, so the owner of a building was a hotel, wanted to identify what is the best material for the structure of a building. And the owner gave this team 6 months to basically look at 9 different variations of the design and the material. Is it going to be steel, concrete, or timber? For this design, they had 3 different designs, 9 combinations. And the owner gave them 6 months to do this analysis because it was very important for the owner. And what the team did was it took them 1 month to come up with the design of one building, the structural design of one building, and another month to do the estimating. So 2 months passed, and they could do only 1 option out of 9. And they said, oh, this is impossible that we can study all these 9 different variations in such a short time. And in my PhD, I developed a solution, an AI solution, that could quickly, based on the past estimating data and based on the different data coming from the structural analysis solver, that could quickly, in a day, tell them these are the best options for these 9 different combinations, and this is the solution that is the most economical one. And this way they could put that in front of the client instead of 9 months or 6 months, in a day or 2 or in a week. And this is how they could impress their clients and how they can do the work better, faster, and they can help the client to make better decisions.
So that's interesting. So tell me a little bit more about that. As you were presented with that problem, what led you to the solution that you chose?
Yeah, so the problem, often the problems that we are having in our industry is that we do things in sequential orders. So first, I need to do the structural design part, and that takes a month. And then when the structure is ready, somebody needs to do quantity takeoff and match that with the cost model that we have. And here is the end result. This is a number, this is the cost for this building. And the question I always ask is, can we do this differently? What if there was a way that we don't need to do this in a sequential way? And what if we can kind of revert that? And oftentimes, with the help of technology, if it's built right, we can do that. We can do things faster, cheaper, and in a very short period of time.
So that's interesting, because I think the key phrase there is if it's built right.
Yes.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because your background in construction, how does that help you in understanding the way to build the technology?
Yeah. So this is very important because I often say the technology that it builds right solves a major problem, and it has at least 10 times return on investment. And working in construction helps me to really understand what the real problem is. Not the problem on the surface, but three problems below that, below the problem that is being presented. And that also matching that with what is the right approach, what's the right technology. Even, if the AI is the solution, what is the right technique in AI that can help this company to do things better and faster in short, to reduce risk, and to do that in a most efficient way. So understanding a problem is the key to solving a problem in the right way. And my background in the industry brings that into the table.
Okay, so you said something really interesting here, and I want to explore it a little bit more. You talked about the problem on the surface, and then being able to dive below the presenting problem to get to the root issue. Please give us some insights into techniques that you use to go from the surface problem to the root problem.
Yeah, one of the well-known techniques in this area that is asking 5 why questions.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a very common technique, and when you ask that, it's a very awkward exercise often. When you ask that for the first time and second time and third time, often you hear that we are getting closer to the roots of the problem. And an example of that could be, for instance, in a previous project that I was involved in, the CEO wanted to grow the company, and they wanted to increase the revenue of the company without, and he had major problems because increasing revenue means hiring more people.
Right.
And how can we do that? So when you ask why do you want to do that, and basically the question is because I want to create more value for the investors who invested in company and for the stakeholders. And when you go deeper into that, you get into what's the problem under like 5 layers below. And for this company, that problem was basically the bidding process. They used to spend a lot of time, maybe 2 weeks to a month, to bid on the project that they couldn't win, or they could win 1 out of 10 or 15 projects that they bid on. And looking deeper into that, we realize that, again, going back into the sequential process that they had. First, the sales team gets interested in a project, and then their design team needed to do the design. And after doing that, their estimating team needs to do the quantity takeoff. And right after that, they realize that, oh, this is above the budget that the client has. So we need to redo the design, and we need to redo the estimating. And in the end, they had to go back and forth multiple times to come up with a number that makes sense. And they put that into the bid, and they don't get it. And that brought millions of dollars, $2 million to be exact, just waste in the process.
Yeah.
And we basically create a technology for them to, so instead of a month spending on that, they could do it in a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this way they could bid on more projects, and they could do that in a very short period of time.
Okay. So let's pivot a little bit to AI, artificial intelligence, because I know that is your specialty. That's something that you've spent a lot of time thinking through and working on. So just to kick us off here, What is AI? Give us your definition.
Great. I'm gonna disappoint you on that because I usually use other people's definition.
That's fine. I have no problem with that.
In one sentence, AI is a field of science where scientists try to mimic humans' capability, or scientists try to design computer systems that mimics human capabilities. So we use our eyes to see things, we use our ears to hear things, and our brain does reasoning, and we learn and we act, and all of these. So scientists use computer vision techniques to mimic what humans see. Scientists use natural language processing techniques to basically mimic how human talks. And in robotics, they mimic how human acts. And a simple metaphor that I use for people to remember this is that AI is like a tree, and it has roots in science, in biology, mathematics, computation, evolution, neuroscience. And so these are the roots of AI. And the branches of AI are different subfields or different techniques in AI. It could be computer vision, natural language processing, knowledge representation and reasoning, optimization, and robotics. Machine learning is another branch of AI. And recently, because of the popularity of machine learning, and more specifically, deep learning branch of machine learning, people often use machine learning and AI interchangeably. But the reality is that machine learning is just one branch of this AI tree.
And tell us what machine learning is.
Yeah, so machine learning is a technique in AI where scientists try to mimic how humans learn. And if you think about humans, we use data every day. What we see, we have sensors like our eyes, ears, and tongues, and these are all the sensors in our body. And we capture the data around us, and based on what we capture and how we process it, we learn things, and we connect things to what we know before, and this becomes our knowledge, and so on. So in machine learning, scientists try to mimic that. They say, what if we have data, and lots of data, and what if we can learn from this data? So they invented techniques that you provide them with this set of data, and these techniques try to learn the relationship or pattern in the data. And there are different techniques in machine learning that can do that. And based on those, we need different amounts of data. And this is a technique that if we use, we can learn the pattern of things, we can recognize objects, and we can also use it to actually act in the environment. Like some of the robotics and robots use machine learning techniques to perform a certain task.
Excellent. I really like that definition about AI looking to mimic human capabilities. It's very interesting. So I'd like to then ask, why should I, a construction company president or owner, invest in AI?
Yeah. So you brought a really good point. And your reflection was, how can AI to mimic human capabilities?
Mm-hmm.
And what if I tell you that you can mimic your top performer employee capabilities and have that for the rest of your lifetime in your company? And that's, let's call it virtual employee can learn from not only one project, from all of your projects, and can make suggestions like an advisor, and can recommend things, act on things. And you pay for it once, and you have it for the rest of your life in the company, and it won't leave your company. It's going to be there to stay. And it doesn't need it doesn't need that much maintenance. So that's the definition of a AI system or AI agent that can mimic human capabilities and can help you to remove some of the inefficiencies in your company. Or if you think about lessons learned that comes out of a project, you can bring that up into a scale across your company so that you don't make the same mistake many times in different projects.
Okay, so you've just made a big promise. And your promise is I take my A players and I replicate them using AI. And I don't even care then if my A players go get stolen by the competition, because I've got the AI to help me to repeat that excellence on an ongoing basis. Did I just want to make sure I heard that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, when you, okay, now, so this is a big promise. This is, I often say, think about to the executives that AI is like a magic wand that that you have is a tool. At the end of the day, it's a tool, right? Yeah. And it goes back into the problems that you have in the company.
Yeah.
So what are the major problems that you are facing in your company? Or if you don't have any problem, good for you.
Right.
What are the directions that you're taking your company? What are it really starts from the business strategy. What's the strategy that you have in the market? And how can this tool help you to achieve that strategy? The example I gave about increasing sales without increasing the headcount is just one example of how AI can help you to grow your business without increasing your overhead too much. At the end of the day, it's the tool that can enable you to become more productive, reduce the risk in your projects, and help you to make things better and faster.
So how do you distinguish between AI and, let's just say, regular software? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, one way that, the question is basically maybe a difference between automation and AI, because automation, we've been automating things for many, many years.
Yes.
And we try to do things faster with automation. And the layer that AI adds is learning and being able to get smarter over time. Like today, you're using perhaps a CAD tool, and the computer-aided design been here for many, many years and can help you to automate certain tasks. But is that learning anything new, or every time you start from a blank screen? And the AI layer on top of that could be, for instance, you've done a project or a typical project 100 times before. What if you could put in certain parameters of the project? This is a hospital. You've designed 100 hospitals before. These are certain parameters. This is the location, and this is what we want to do. And this AI engine can give you a starting point. Okay, based on what you've done in the past, this is your starting point for your design. Or based on what you've done in the past, these are the issues and risks that's involved in this specific project in this location. And watch out for this and for that. So this way you can manage your risk better, or you can design better, and you can do your work in a better way. And you don't need to, when a new, for instance, employee comes, you preserve that knowledge in your organization. And this AI is able to look at all the data in the past and help your new employees, for instance, to do a better design, to better manage the risk, and to better do the project.
So in your mind, what are the limits of AI? Because the first thing that's coming into my mind is the word intuition, right? So if I'm looking to mimic human behavior, one of the aspects of human behavior that's essential, but it's in many ways difficult to measure, is this idea of intuition. So what are the limits of AI?
Yeah, that's a very important question. In writing my book, Augmented, I interviewed and worked with more than 50 people from the industry. And I asked them this question: what can I put in the book that makes it a valuable read? And I gathered all the information, all the questions that they had, and all the things that they had. And one of the questions that popped up, and it was kind of a pattern, was what AI cannot do? What are the limitations of AI? And I'm happy that you're bringing this up. One of the things that I often say is, and I also documented this in the book, AI cannot imagine new things, right? So there are two ways you can, at the big picture, there are two ways you can create an AI system. One is you use human knowledge to model things. So it's a kind of a modeling based way of doing this. And or if you don't have that knowledge, you have lots of examples from the past projects, you provide that. And this way, for instance, the machine learning can learn the patterns and the relationship between all the elements of the data that you provided. So these are two different ways.
Can I just interrupt you there? Because when you talk about patterns, that sounds a little bit like intuition, because that's part of intuition, isn't it? It's being able to recognize patterns and process it rapidly in making decisions.
Yes.
So
yes,
are you
definitely
saying then that AI does have a capability of mimicking intuition?
At the end of the day, what it does, yes, mimicking intuition, yes. And if you look at it at the deeper level, what it does, it finds the relationship in data. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a correlation in data.
Yes.
And if you provide, for instance, if you provide the data that has no relationship in it, like it produces, gives you bad results because it can't find any relationship in your data.
Can you sorry, I just because I'm learning here, can you give me an example from construction of data that's related that could be put into an AI system?
Yes, for sure. As an example, let's say safety.
Right.
Just let's pick that as an example.
It's a great one.
Yeah, and in safety, for instance, let's say there is a big relationship between the safety of people and whether or not they have safety equipments on. Okay, right. PPE.
Yeah.
And what you can do, as an example, you can create lots of images. You can put cameras on the side and record people and as they're moving on the side, and then start labeling who has the vest on or who doesn't have, or who has the helmet on or who doesn't have one. And you can use this data to teach a model or to train a model that can tell now on its own, oh, this person has one or this person doesn't have one. And you could use that on the site so that when people are moving around without any personal protective equipment, it tells them, oh, this person doesn't. And now what you do is that you have it on all of your cameras on the site, and you can immediately say, okay, this person in this location forgot to put the hard hat on, and let's send somebody to inform them. Or this person does it really well and we need to encourage them. So this is an example of a data that you can provide. And now, in order to do that, you need to provide the data and you need to label them, which means that you need to have an image, and you need to say that, okay, this person has one, this person doesn't have one. This person has one, this person doesn't have one. And you need to have enough examples like this. And so this AI system will learn over time that, oh, basically this means that this means hard hat. This means it doesn't really know what hard hat is.
Right.
But it learns over time that, okay, this is something that this person is interested in.
Yes.
And this is the best. And now that it's been trained, you can deploy it in all your projects across the globe, and you can this way monitor people if that's something you want to do.
Okay, that's excellent. So there's multiple applications here. So let's just be real, directive here. How should I get started then on my AI journey?
Yes. Great question. The starting point for executives is, I always recommend to look into their business strategies. So
look into their strategies,
instance,
you said.
Exactly.
Okay.
Business strategy. If the strategy is to offend, to go to a new market.
Right.
Let's say you want to work on industrial construction. This is a new market for you. You haven't been there, and you want to do that, and you want to do it in the next 2 years, and you want to invest in that. So this is an area that you can say how I can leverage AI to be able to help me to get there faster and better. And
Right.
there's always a solution for that. But if your strategy is to, continuous improvements, to maintain what you have, or defend your position in the market, you can look into your current business problems. What are the biggest business problems that you have? Mm-hmm. Is it cost overruns and you want to reduce the risk? Is it, whatever problems that you're having, and look into the opportunities of using AI there. And to do that, I often say you bring your biggest business problems, and what I can help with is working with these executives to say, okay, these are 3 different ways that you can solve this problem with the help of technology. And this way is, requires more work. This requires less work. This brings the highest return on investment. And that's, we typically get into a strategy workshop, and we bring all of those discussions into the table, because at the end of the day, we want to find areas with high return on investment, something that has the most return, the value, and it's easy to do. And the result is certain, and we can implement that in a short period of time. So that's what I recommend to the business executives in the companies.
So let me just stop you there just to summarize. There's 3 big buckets here that I'm hearing from you, and help me with this. The first one, I could use AI in terms of design. I could use AI in terms of sales and business growth. I could use AI in terms of quality control, or like the safety example that you gave on the job site mm-hmm. itself.
Yeah. And another one could be inspection. Okay. So teams at Haskell, they had only 2 certified welders, and they're responsible basically for certain, looking at all the weldings and making sure that these are in a good shape. And they are in the food and beverage, industry. And for them, it's very important that the weldings are very clean and it's, totally certified. But they have 100 projects in the US, and these 2 people, they can be everywhere.
Right.
So this is really challenging. And what they did was basically looking into how they can use AI in the hands of the welders. So now every welder, when they're done, they take a photo of the welds. And this photo will be, the AI system can tell them, oh, this is a good weld. Oh, this is not a good weld. And the certified welders get all this information in their office, and they look at them and say, oh, yes, this is actually a really good weld, or this is actually not a good weld. So this virtual weld certified welder is in the hands of every welder on the side. And this is how they can reduce the risk of having bad welds and, lawsuits down the road. It never happened to them. But, at the end of the day, they're collecting better data. This virtual certified welder is getting better. And this is how they're reducing the risk on the side.
Interesting. Very interesting. So what are the biggest mistakes that people make when they're investing in AI?
Yeah, that's a very important question. One is there's a perception in the industry that in order for us to get started, we need to have data. And to have data, or to have a good data, we need to work 2 or 3 years to collect that.
Okay.
And so we're not going to start until 2 years from now or 3 years from now. I actually had a conversation with one of the executives yesterday, and he came to my book launch and he said, when you told me that this is not right, I was relieved, because we were actually investing in collecting data for 2 years. And the welding example that I gave you is a good example, because they said we have no example of bad welds or good welds, but we want to start in this project, and what should we do? Like, who keeps examples of bad welds? Okay,
right.
These are
no, that's good.
1,000 bad welds.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to wait for 3 years to do that.
Right.
And the question is, okay, we can create a data set for good and bad welds based on the limited number of good and bad welds. So what they did was they went to the site, asked the welders, can you make some bad welds? And they look at them and say, oh, what is wrong with you? Like, nobody asked about bad welds. But they were like, oh, trust us, just make some bad welds. And so they took photos and brought that back to the office, created a 3D model of the welds, and using that, they were able to create lots of different variations of that weld. So this is the starting point, kind of bootstrapping. And over time, as the welders are using the system, they can send the real data back to the office, and we can replace the real data with the data that we created. And this is how over time the system gets better and better. As I told you, this is like having your best employee, mimicking your best employee, but over time it gets better and better, and it doesn't require that much maintenance and can be in every project that you have.
So again, I think, as with all technology, the most important thing is to, when you're first starting out, is to create or to identify an area that you want to grow in, or an issue that you have, a problem that you have that you want to solve, and being laser focused on that one thing to begin with. I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so now you have a book that you've just published that gets into all of this in detail. Can you tell us about your book, Mehdi?
Absolutely. So the book called Augmented, and the reason I wrote this book is that over the past 10 years, I've been working with a lot of different companies in both architecture, engineering, construction industry, and manufacturing. And I started seeing a pattern why some of the projects are successful and why some of the projects are not successful. And I started documenting those that now is this book today, and really wanted to help the industry to avoid some of the mistakes that others been making, and sharing my knowledge and how really we can work together to push this industry forward. Because at the end of the day, if you could reduce your risk, if you could do the project better with higher quality, all of us on the planet can get benefit from it. And it's a win-win for everybody, for the industry and for the world.
So what is if I go out and buy the book, what is the big takeaway or the big, return on my investment of, $20 and the time to read it? What am I going to get out of the book?
Yeah, so the first part of the book talks about AI education. It's about what is AI, what is not AI, what it can really do, and what it cannot do. What are the biases, in AI systems, and gives lots of examples in architecture, engineering, and construction. What are the AI systems in architecture, in engineering, and construction? It also talks about the different interactions that you have with AI systems.
You said interactions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. How you interact, and you should interact with the AI systems. And so this is the first part of the book, how you can use your data and how you can use that in a better and a smarter way, and some of the challenges you may have and how you can overcome that. So the second part of the book, this is how-to book, talks about, now that you know about AI, how can you bring that into your company? So when I talk about AI investment, I don't mean the AC companies go to, create the next flying robots.
Right.
Let the technology company do that for you.
Right.
But what I mean here is that look into your problems that's unique to you.
Yep.
Or look into the areas that you're really good at.
Yes.
For instance, you have a secret sauce in estimating, and you are you because of this. And you want to take that to the next level in your company.
I like
so
that.
You spend 10,000 hours or more to do the way that you do estimating.
Yeah.
And you want to take that to the next level. And this is the area that you need to invest on more, and AI can help you with that. So the second part of the book talks about how you need to do that, and basically it starts from your business strategy and talks about how you can find these use cases from the different corners of your business, and how you should prioritize them, and how you should find the one that has the highest return on investment for you based on your strategy. And then it talks about different steps that you need to take as a leader in your company. The book is written for AC executives. It's not for computer scientists. It's not for a low-level manager. It's for AC executives, and help them to go through the innovation process, how you first need to validate the technical feasibility, and then the business viability of that idea, and how you can bring that up to your company, and go, basically you invent, you innovate, and then you augment your business capabilities with AI, and then you repeat this process. Because now that you've done it once, you take your company to the next level, and then you can repeat it to go further in the process. That's in a nutshell is the book. The last part of the books brings more examples about actual use cases and case studies of AI in the industry. Brings 3 examples in design, in prefabrication, and in construction. And that's, in essence, that's how the book is structured.
That's really interesting. So what I'm taking away from this, and this is, it's a little bit of a twist on your typical approach to technology, because, when I talk to technology executives who are servicing, construction companies, the main thing is, what problems can we solve? But what I've gotten from our discussion here today that is interesting to me, and that AI offers, is this idea of taking your best employee and mimicking and multiplying their effect using AI across your organization. And then the second thing you said, which I thought was really interesting, is taking your secret sauce, the thing that sets you apart, whether it be in estimating or whether it be in planning or in production, and then replicating that and getting that to be multiplied across the entire organization. And even taking that secret sauce and perhaps executing it quicker and more efficiently. Yeah.
And keeping that organizational knowledge in your organization.
Yes.
So this is another thing, is that, as a person who work in construction, I know that there are certain key people that if you lose, they're going to be a big loss for your company and for your organization. And they get to the retirement stage and they're going to leave at some point. But being able to have that organizational knowledge in your company, and when a junior person comes in, this can help them to get up to speed faster and better. So this is another angle that we can have.
So you could use AI as a mentor, so to speak, for your new employees.
Absolutely. This is how they can get better. And once they acquire more knowledge, they can also contribute into your AI. So this is how you kind of you improve your organizational knowledge as more data comes in.
Excellent. Well, Mehdi, you've been very generous with your time here. How can people get a copy of Augment, your new book?
Thanks. So the book is available on Amazon and major booksellers. They can go to www.augmentit-book.com, or they can come to my website, www.mehdinour.com. And there are lots of free resources available. I also have the free AI workbook available if you want to get started in your AI journey in your company. You just go there, click on the free stuff, and then download that workbook, and let's start your journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can go to that website, and we'll put the link in the show notes, the augmentit-book.com, and you can actually get free book chapters. So that's pretty cool as well. So you can check out the book there, and we'll put all those links in the show notes. Mehdi, you've been very, very generous. I know you're in the Bay Area there, and you're originally from Iran. So what we need is, if I'm in the Bay Area and I'm hitting a Persian restaurant, what's the Persian restaurant that I need to go to in the Bay Area?
Yes, the best. There are multiple Persian restaurants there. I can think of my favorite is Lavash, Lavash. So that's in San Francisco.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go.
Excellent. That's great. And that's in San Francisco. We're going to put the link in the show notes, Lavash. That's great. I tell you, Mehdi, you've been very generous with your time. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot here about AI, and I appreciate your perspective on it. It's not just about solving problems, but it's also about leveraging your best employees and the best things that you do in your organization.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for this great conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and I hope you have a better sense of how AI, artificial intelligence, can impact your business positively. Feel free to check out all the show notes and grab a copy of Mehdi's book, Augment It. The link to where you can get that is in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to Construction Genius. Hey, listen, if you like the show, and I know many of you do because you're listening, feel free to give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. That helps us to spread across the interwebs. And the more ratings and reviews we get, the more visible the show becomes, and the more construction leaders can benefit from listening. Thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next episode.